Assalamu alaikum badi lamay lalu ngali kontong ngali bismillah na bitilo kibarul to allal badi malum falli fadera ngali kontong bi aramiso september karotil tanding kilingola benyin sango men kono kontondro kola dron kontal ta kake nyamen se jibe ke kunto kibarul la ngamen sodi jang o kola sina kibarul fanundali ngali kontong sa fale ko ni Ibrima Sonko le be jang ko nga fale nyamen kunung fanam mu multime alon ko sila nabele denta nying programme wala metal la janne ka ñoo haklimaya ka kibarol kono fanundi kibarol men yalan ko wolel ka fintin kanjang anim fanan kam men futandal ma jang atol men be lama ka radio to gambe banko kam albe moy kam vibes fm le 106.1 fm men felenti manja kunda sate kono konton dro ko lambadi ngol silam nse jibe ke kunto kibarol la ngamen sori jam badi ngol nyaaduma ni kibarol to albamo la ko iko Netherlands la mansakunda iko wolel be ferol kafuka nyoma ka jibe ibe molu murundi no la nyamen Gambia dingo membe sabatring ila banko kan kaydi tebulu andi kera molti fana mealan koy mansanji tang anin seol si ko kibarol la tan nyamen na ya tan je ko minister dole be tanyi banko kam minister mebe maraling bantala banko ni dinol ko lay ko wala safero ke banko la député bungo kan ka sasiro ke pour ye mako nyin karola me dinkalo kibaro kono mba jibe la mba fanu dale me jibe lo fanan ke la kibar la membe dending United Democratic Party la opposition ya Democratic Party kibaro la tan je ko wala li tom bonke lo Usenu Dabola ka ke moti malon ko atele be nyaton ka kala patio la kabula nyin carte fay kono men sumanta gambela jari sawla wo kera fendi wo be kala fendi malon ko mba jibe la mba fanu dale nyaar demanding mbe jibe lo fanan kala kibar la membe dendim fali wala men sotta president Adama Barrow la mansa kunda kono nyin temben na kibaro la tani je ko e ka tele tombonke mo kuta la membe nyaatun ka kala ministre bundala membe marlin tanko ko wala gambe banko kam ya tani je ko ay falingo dolke wona la ke fendi malon ko adi amobe siari nyin temben na gambe banko kan mbe jibe la mbo jibe la mba fanu la mbe jibe lo kala nyin nim bantala banko kibaro la woto mbadi ngolu nalla fa fandir ke nyon kibaro la alin kal kam tan kibar ko tan wala alsela moy demanding nyaata demanding kibaro to fanam ni nga kunto kibaro lu jibe nim pareta dron mbe dinkala nying nyong mbe dinkala UDP la ko kono membe dending ila nying Flagbearer kuto la memula Usenu Daboti simfal menta mata fon fota nyin temboto anim fanam patio se munku lel keno kabo sign ning jari tema carte fawla karo anim kambe wonin kankili yalo be kala fenti balon ko mba jibela mbe jibelo fanan kala mbe kacha fanan kala president Adama Barrow la nyim falin kuto la men ke ala cabinet o kono mbe mba ko jibele kato ko auditor general nyi yemen tombong kake ministati wala du yala minister palaso tombong murundi mansa kunda kan me yo nyon kuma kan sifa sabo ni Ibrima ba ko kachala ni murtana nyar demanding janim bo kala do Ibrima sebule ni mole nyo kontong ko la nsina dinka kibaro kono
baraka bake mfalli fadera mo bella moy kan dawda ala baraka bake mba fulale ko alni mbara assalamu alaikum bitilo kibaroto nim falli fadera be tara jang sainte mfalli be continue la nim kibarolu de na pareta doron sinana nga kuolta ngi jaba kese woto ala baraka
baraka bake sonkondeni bari ngol ngali konto ngali bismillah ko reke bitilo kibarol to alnal bari malum falli fadera ko Ibrima fa nyamen silence katabato jibe ke kibarol la ngamen so janni o botala ngamurna ngana dinka kacha kono mbo folo la menna wala mo kibati me alon ko abe dending Netherlands bankola jamal fana yalo ni Holland la akira bankuti me alon ka be Europe le kono kibarol la tani je ko minister membe ni Netherlands la mansa kunda kono wala safero ke kata bankola député bunga kan mem Netherlands la député bungoti ka sasiro ke wala purise kango dito le saji sa dati ka Gambia dingolu ning Ethiopia dingolu murundi ila bankolu kam men yalon ko dindingol lel muyti ban sanji tang anin sesi e beje kayti tebulu to Netherlands banko kam baro lay tan je ko atani ministre ikay safaro ke député bu ngokan kanyi nyon kango dani bulu kabin tumo menna ye kiskisro ke la doko bunda e kafme ko immigration and naturalization service kabin tumo menna kiskisro ke Gambia ning Ethiopia la kola ela kiskisro e ko e menjeje wala muko e ko dindingolu men be motaring e to lu bulu ila banko kan kayti tebulu menu bota Ethiopia ning Gambia ko se murndino ela wulu banko lu kanne kati ko ya ela kiskisro e maytan wala muko nyimbankunu même mo Gambian ni Ethiopia ti ka fitnate je beten kundine andu nyuni semurno jele ku kolente lale kan je baro lay tan je ko ikafame ko acting minister of asylum mu David Van Wilty ikatele safaro ke nyin député bungol kanke kalamutandi wala kaytan di nyamenna ya tani je ko ala safaro ko na tan di député bungol fanana la ko ako nyin tembenna ko gambianolu ni ethiopianolu wala jamaale be mutari tol bulu men yalon ko dindingol len muri sanjitan anin sey ima hani sanjitan ni sey masi ako nyin be mutari tol bulu be maboring ila dinkiral to tarinke atani Netherlands banko kam atani je ko dalilo kambala sulo be jele pour yenyum murundi la wulu banko lu kankadum kaydi mantara nyunu buluje kata dum ya itani nyamena atani je ko nyintem menna ko luwal nin sato lel be laring Netherlands banko kam men yatina no fo man sakunda man nyunu sendino ko dalilo kamba ka be la fila pour atani Netherlands man sakunda député bu ngose kanodi ye silo wala ngitole isaje sa dati kanyin dindingol ta ke murundi la wulu bankolu kan mel mo ethiopian Gambia ko kibaro le atani nyame nimboro do mbadi ngolun se jibe ke kibaro do la fananga men sori jamembe dending opposition United Democratic Party la jamale melon ni UDP la ko nga fale nyame na kunun kibaro to i ko kafme ko la Ousainou Darboe kibaro le atani je ko parti wala tombong ka ke la bandir mutalati kadung nyin carte fay ko men sumanta Gambe bankola 2026 samala ya tani je ko atani la Ousainou Darboe e ko carte fayo bira keta nun ani nyimmo fulolu tema men yalon ko ani wollel tutanyin nyose akono ka UDP la bandero nyini ka ke moti membe patio nyaton kala nyin carte fay na lan kono e ko la Ousainou Darboe ye carte kese taworo ni lu le soto ko kibaro le tani nyamenna e ko bori esture we carte kese sele soto Amadou Sane carte kese fula we wala soto ko kibaro le tani nyamenna wodunata maytandi wala muko patio la National Executive jama beje ye kato sika yala Ousainou Darboe le bulu prase nyaton kaya ayke modi membe la bandero sika la kadum 2026 carte fayo kono ko kibaro le atani nyamena kibaro le atani je ko la Ousainou Darboe dum briya tombon ye nyim bandero la bulu e ka findita diamuta patio dingole bara diamuta kibata la nin kibar jenjennal fanaye ay tandi je ko akabe UDP je la be tendula pour ye nyin lan non jiko men sotate to ka tambindi patio nyato nyin kate finala 2026 wala Gambe banko kam akabe sasiro ni yamarlo kala UDP dingol la pour ise kulwoni bunyani hormo tambindi wato wati ila fokumol kono ila barol to ka aytandi nyamena ko alinga nyonne ngobula alinga nyo kaja firo bula ko katum wote patio nafala ka aytandi nyamena e ko la Ousainou Darboe fana nata jero nin tenduro sendi UDP dim fololu kan men keta molti men alon ko lele patio lo ani mol men e batani kole ani menu niyotuta patio la kelo kono kaje ko de Gambia bondi batani kole kono president ko to jambela maralo kono ko kibaro le aytani nyamena ya aytani je ko e kay ko foyta dum ito la Ousainou Darboe e jiko sudo ko ete se president Adama Barrow lipano le bang nyin kate finala atenu la Ousainou Darboe ko namal lanu nga fangola kase Barrow boyndi nole aka manta bandero nyini lanum patio to yala ko kibarulu ya itani yamena atenyin la Ousainou UDP fanan commando ye kankularo kele ka itani je ko ebe kato kelele nyin kate fayo ko la ka jibe ebe kambe ngoni kankeli ya samano le nyamen patio kono kadum jamali men cross andu bambanta findita kibarol to wodu yemeten ni wolum ko kambe ngoni kambe mbali asembo wata patio kono le la nyin kate fay Flagbearer kate fay wato kono nyin UDP ning la Ousainou Darboe la tombongo o be kala fentime alon ko bi na kacha ning Ebrima abe sembela wala bi na bitilo kibaro ton sa fale dron ko al se emunya demanding yar demanding adati ngana ko jibe nimboro do mbadi ngolu silence jibe ke kibaro do fanana soro jawo tere kibarti me alon ko wo be dendi menna wole mu wole mu falingol timeni alon ko wole sorata Gambia man sakunda nyin tembenna kunun arabo September karo tili tawala president Adama Barrow la man sakunda e kankularo ke ko ye falingo dole ke cabinet o kono Gambia man sakunda cabinet na ke lati damenti alon ko Gambia minister lel beje president na la minister wala kafringo nyoma wala mo cabinet Gambia banko kam tibaro la tan jiko president Adama Barrow le falingo ke o karola kabintu mo menna ala minister membe maralin julayani safarola memu minister Baboucar Dioufti e ko ye wala bondi wo palaso to minister Sirankam ya samba minister ya samba dula kototo e ka fudamente ko Ministry of Defense wo kera minister bundari membe maralin banko tanko kono kola ko kibaro le tan nyamena e ko ka fa me ko Modou Cissé me alon ka tele mo Auditor General di nyintembenna ya ta bondi wo Siranto e ko ya samba Ministry of Trade men kera minister bundari membe maralin julani safaro ninkumu ya tele sendi nyim Baboucar Diouf no do ko kibaro le tan nyamena nyin kankularo bota state house le bulu ko kibaro le aytandi nyame na bari mbe kibaro men soto kam wodum be me yitandi ko wala mu ko nyin Modou Cissé me alon ka tel mu auditor general di iko mole me alon ko akamal lafi wo ministre ya sira wala kata be dementa la fatula wala to na kibar kuta kutol mem fango muta kabo internet do nyin temben na kabo Watson Gambia bulu alin ker fatu nga ananyum kibar jam bundalo wol duye me yitandi wala mu ko iko Attorney General Modou Cissé safaroke mansa kunda kanne ke jabi ila tombongo la kanko atelebe kela ministre kudo me marla julani safaro kola Modou Cissé aytani je ko aba ate dum malla fikata ala belafle le prior to atening Attorney General's office memu National Audit Office li ko kibaru le aytani nyamen ni National Audit Office lemu buloti mansakunda kono menu kallo kaje ko de mansakunda do ko bundal se kontibo ibaro la sakofang ye mansakunda la kodo luning nafulolu mara nyamen ila dépense do karola anin ku katangol anyim fanam be kala fentime alon ko mba jibe le nyaato demanding ning Ibrima Sonko na kacha kono Bitilo to jang nyaato demanding bari ngolu nimbaro don se jibe ke kibaro dola nga mem falan sore jang wo kira kibarti me alon ko abe dendi menna wole mu nying bantal banko ID card dioti me alon ko Gambia man sakunda wala dalti num komando kibaro le tan je ko ministre mem maraling ning na banko tanko kono kola Gambia Immigration Department be wo koto même mu ministre même mu ministre of interior di ko la ministre kafme ko Abdoulaye Sanyam atele bankero ke kaytan di député wala kunun ko ako Gambia fana ye ID card yo datile Guinea-Bissau banko kam manam be Guinea-Bissau kafu banko lu kanne banko men yalon ko Gambia immigration be finti kan Gambia dingolu kanje ka ID card sika ka dila ko kibaro le aytani nyamena baro le aytani je ko atani ID card yo bantala banko kam fenne me yalon ko dalta Mauritania le abodo ranata Gabon anin Togo bara ministre Abdoulaye Sanyang ya aytani député wala le ko ñing ID card yo fenne me yalon ko silam ya a fut kono fanundire ye Guinea-Bissau la fa jele ko kibaru le aytani jamena kibaru le aytani je ko me ñi ñon kibaru le aytani je ko kafme ko Abdoulaye Ndiaye même mu Banjul Central député odi député bu kono e kay ministre ñi ñininka mu dalil lebe ñi ID card dio koma ministre la jabiro kono ako ñin dabe mansakunda hamole kono kay aytani jamena ata du yeme aytani wala mu ko ako ila ñing ID card dio ñi bantala bankolu kam ako adabe man sakunda la fero lel kono fere kule me alon ka manke ko bi kutile ay wultal dore yake ako fenne me alon ka be dum man sakunda hamotele ka aytandi nyamena aytandi je ko fanan akoy buka wuli dorong ye finti bankolu kam akoy ka jibe ako ila ka bankolu tombo nyamen wo be dendi menna wala mu ko Gambia dingol membe ñim banku nukan wolel ka safaro ko kela la fo itandi ka sasiro ke man sakundala pour ye molu ki kanje ke mako e banko kayto kodo itandi je ko ako Guinea-Bissau fanan ako ko lata wala nyama ako nga kamala soto nga dandir kanne soto ka bo Guinea-Bissau bulu brin Guinea-Bissau yake ka itandi nyamenna silan sita ko la ngaje ko kule melan kon sa kenole ako silan be molu wulindila le ke bondi Gambia banko kan ke ki kata Guinea-Bissau ka finti Gambia dingol kan menu beje ka banko ID card sika ka dila ko kibarolu ya itandi nyamena ya tanyi mini iko ikafme ko asanture memu baka wala député oti député bungo kono ika atako ministre prasa fo to le man sakunda be wuli no la nyaadi le ko kata ID card di bantala bankulu kam wa tara Gambia dingol famo buka ID card soto no Gambia atanyi ministre me itandi wala muko ako man sakunda du no be kanne pour ka lo ka do ko ke Gambia dingol be dawda dunia kono aytani je ko pour ka Gambia dingolu makoy kallo ila kola ibe dawda dunia kono akola tna itol mansakunda be findikan ka Gambia dingol tara ibe dawda ka findikan ka je ko de ye makoy ni ID card ko kiwaro le aytandi nyamenna nimboro do mbadi ngolun se jibe ke na banko kibar la wala bi o be kala kibati me alon ko be dendi paramount sefo palasola kibaro le aytani je ko banko député wolu woleliye minister Ahmad Ba ñinin ka kola atele mu ministre me maraling kenoni man sakundari wala kola Gambia banko kam ya itandi je ko député ya ñinin ka ikay ko mune atinna paramount sefo sirango hanibi momantra siringa kam folo mam mo tombon ka keje iko meya ñinin ka meya ko wulini wala mu lamin je saneti be alon ka tele be sirin député bu ngoto brikama sa toyala ateñing minister Amad Baye me yitandi wala muko ako fenne me alon ko luwale afo luwale ala ka yitandi nyamena ayitandi je ko bari hanibi ako fenne me alon ko president man simfata ko to folo ka yitandi nyamena bara ayitandi je ko nyimukuleti me alon ko akare be president hakili bulandi lalale isaji ya ko nyin jibe ko yitandi nyamena yitandi je ko atanyi lamin je sane fana yitandi minister la ko paramount sefo siran fenne me alon ko banko loi kono abe woleto banko constitution wole mol sasi mansakunda sasi pour isa a palaso fandi isa mo keje ko kibaro leten nyam madi ngol nimbaro do nse jibe ke kibaro do fana nga men soro jam namananta ka jibe ke bantala banko kibaro la o bekela kibati me alon ka be dending welingara sate wala même felenting olundum constituency kono west coast region kibaro leten je ko iko de fitno wulita woleto kabrin tumo menna fondinkewol men yalon ko jorangol be bulu fangolu amurolu ananyum fensi fa ko dangolu idunda nyola je ya tani je ko nyunu findita kaboy nyo kan nyim fondinke merangolu ko nyo barama kono kam boy mo la business olu kam anira safar bundal fana yow be tinya ko kibaro le ya tani nyamena ya tani je ko birin nyinketa ko saintem fango molbe dewri mbaki atani weli ngara sato kono katu be jikirin ko nyimukuleti me alon ko ase tenten nole kati boyta menu kanteng wol fanan foy se wuli ya foy be jola ko kibaro le atani nyamena kibaro le atani je ko nyi nyombo en kan ka fan at sortanu fan september karotili woro lole la talantal nin kilin sudo e ko men siata fonding ke talluluti fangolu be bulu berolu be bulu anin joran kotangolu e ko findita e tata boy mo kotenu kan ato dinkira kilingoto weli ngara kono je manam fondingkewol dammangol be dun kan nyola ko kibarolu yaytandi nyamena yaytandi je ko kono fango ye nyapita boy kambandingo do fanko ko yo lipa nya sangara le ka fay ko Mohammed Job ko kibarolu yaytandi nyamena yaytandi je ko nyimu kuti me alon ko abe adewobe warali mbake o sate o kono kadi be serene ko nyin setenten nole nyin fondingkol be tenten nale ka findi ka boy nyokam ko kibarolu yaytandi nyam nimboro do mbadi ngolu iko Spain la man sakunda embassy men felenti banjul sato kono Gambia wolleli kibar kaydo findindi ka dandalaro ke kaytandi ko fondinkolo men yalon ko iko alsekaro iko fondinkolo men yalon ko wollel ki kara Spain banko kan kara do kola iko ni kay ni tententa ka yole andu ye banka seynan ka murnan ni la doku wato banda iko fenne me yalon ko ning atara tententa asa tunda no le famfo wo nyong badi yamen be ni mansa kunda tema aylo ko kibaro le aytani yamen dal hakilo ba kan al ba kala mutala ko men tara kanyam fo Gambian tan sabani worowla men yalon ko mansa kunda ye sambanu Spain banko kam purieta do ko la je andi nyanta murla nan ni lokon tambila e ko lu be yoleta yemanda tan ni Spain banko kam ko kibaro le aytani yamen ni do kulalo e ko molle me yalon ko nyanta ka karsa bala ke Spain do ko la ni o ke ni pareta ye murnam yana murnan Gambia banko kan doliye tombon waleta do ko la ko kibaro le tan yame bare aytani je ko nyi mo la bangol men nyanta murla nanun e ko wali ye bande man sonna kam murnam e ko mentara kanyam fo mo nani wol kono wol dammangol le murtanam mo tan sabanin killing be borte yemanta janni nyi mo tan sabanin killing wol fanam be yolela e ko dolel folo yake nun wo keta mo worol timene alon ko wolel folo yoleta nun ko kibaro le tan yame Spain la embassy ko nit ñi tententa fenne melon ko abe ila kose ila komale ko kibaro la tani nyamena mbadi ngolu mbe kum faro kela na bi banko kibaro la jenne asiela mo demande ni murtana nga na tenten kacha melon ko ni Ibrima Sonko nyanta wala sot la membe dending ko la men be kekan Gambia banko kan anim banko e bantala Mbaringolu ngali konton ngali bismillah na bitilo kibarol to jang Allah albadi malom falli fadera ko nga fale nyamen sila wato sita puru nga jibeke ani nga kachake ko lamene alon ko mbota wolle kachala tan kibaro to ko nga fa nyamen bi lafta men kachala wole mu UDP la nyim Flagbearer tomba wonti me alon ko wala kum faten anim fanan nyimbe patio nafala warabe patio sendilo ko manyo nyamen men keta kuluti anin diam si ami alon ko sotta patio lo kono Ibrahima ngi bismillah nsa foy ko ita murita subu semol konton yedum kacha kono UDP laning presidential carte fayo ko abelari nyame but maybe janni binan se background ni ladron ka kono fandu mole saje mursa kalam be men ko kacha kam nin ko la famen kacha la bi wala mu UDP len Flagbearer nga jele kibarol to la senu dabole mu yewole tombon ka ke nyaton ko di nyin temmena tel gagné ta kabintu mo men you know simfalu beta ma foy futata carte fay dula ko nga fa nyamen UDP ye almost mo taworo wala nim feng ye wole so the National Executive Committee kono Darboe kono wala mu ilaning regional administration leader ta nim feng ko so carte o fayta birin carte o fayta la senu Darboe carte ke se taworo anin lu le soto bori esture sey Amadou Sane fula soto kono so la fakalom maybe ka patio ni ka diamo daile safa mole te o koje nyaadi le what's your reaction, your immediate reaction to the emergence of Laos and Darboe as the Flagbearer?
Fali ninkol kan kuma follow memi follow olam ko congratulations to Honorable Alhaji Ousainou Darboe for kake UDP la Flagbearer di kotenke pour nyin 45 kotom minanan 2026 nima bote je memi follow olam nyindi ko ngam mol jale mi ba fokam breaking news but na reaction follow mindi olam nyim manke breaking news di because dol mi yalan ko nga kuwol kalamuta nga pati kuwol kalamuta nga hakilo domandin soto pati la tama nyala Gambia ba na la ko nyin democratic process mu UDP min kete nyawonya at the end of the day ko bandula ku kilinda malo Ousainou Darboe da malbe finland la nyin lanto kake pati la Flagbearer because because ka foko Darboe mo dictatority wala kudolam I think Darboe ya doko nyinkele want to be fair to Ousainou Darboe aya doko nyinkele party nyinko aya sacrifice nyim fananke party nyintole ka ensure that party member soul anila delegate soul milia kate nyin diala to reward him for a sacrifice or minka and leadership covering 1996 for B now womu one kukilinati kufla nyom minde mi anko ndela miro de wala fo gana kumata is that nyina ala outcome be kalamunati party nyin ka decide ka Ousainou Darboe keje kotenke weda nyimbe sembo stola bam pour ka kabaro mamandi nyin karte fo be bilanan 2026 wala nyimu kudol te fanan kabe labanal 2000 last election 2021 labanta nyame so UDP Ousainou Darboe select ila right long wati dol faram be banta ani mol be banta mi yalan ko ye mira ko wala le mira long ko UDP nyanta tala sila dolla also kachada malakeno but the party additional mingi fongo horoma fongi bunya because democratic process long and in the democratic process Ousainou Darboe yolta ya tomo so nimmi yalan ko fanan itaman kontan ni wala the beauty of our democracy is optional Seattle so sa isadla do jibe sita no dami bari UDP wala ke so mode kuno la je foke horoma ke bunya kan yes fongi criticize fana kan wote bala bari Darboe tomong bari intela miralo minti wala minti ko abe koleala baba kele considering election jama Darboe ayole ke mi alon ko man gagné je ko kanana ko be laare nyamen in 2026 pour Darboe gagné ko denke fali nang nindangoje de nangoje de ben surprise baba kele bari ndama mira wasekeno
abaraka Ibrima I think fanamba follow la demendo wala muka kafima ka la Ousainou Darboe congratulate any UDP as a party come memfodrong I think they did a remarkable job overseeing this whole process ye ntenga mira ye koning handle nyaming at the level of the national executive kulem me alon ko nyabo kulem kadum entela jerodo at least based on ngamenje ko be la kene batole ye kankularo ke ye party dingol invite dolu sota men alon ko ye hamoyitandi they oversaw the process and went all the way to the logical conclusion. Darboe came and won. So I don't think also it's fair to say that, in your opinion, you think it was a foregone conclusion.
Yes. But UDP, listen, UDP mu Darboe mu UDP.
No, but at the same time also,
okay.
they had a process.
Yes.
And the process did not stop anyone from expressing their desire to compete against Darboe if you so wish to do so. And in fact, Ngajele, unprecedentedly, more turning killing will fin the party to show their interest. For what it is worth, I think it is commendable. And I think, even though I agree with you that Ntema Mira morning Darboe se fenyi UDP kono ya ganye. I don't think so too. But at the same time also, I think, the party tried to be as democratic as possible. They gave everyone a fair shot and people responded, and they went through a whole process of, application, vetting, selection, all the way to voting. I think there was also a semblance of competition when the last three refused to,
compromise.
Reach a consensus. Yeah. They refused to reach a consensus. And these other countries So I think, it's quite commendable. But I definitely agree with you. I think one of the mistakes Talibi and Menke is thinking that as I say Dabo compete for the flag bearership in UDP I win. Hanata Nufama withdraw. I did not see that happening. I think, Laya Dabo come Memfo, he is so entrenched in the UDP. The UDP people also love him. Regardless of what you may think of him, they respect him. They respect his sacrifice. And most of them, they feel like, he needs to be rewarded. He needs to be rewarded, with the highest office. And essentially, because Jamal Beje Membenu Ibulu Muko, na maroloke up to a certain point, and until I silo warang Darboe to come on board and all of that. So I can see that. So maybe Lafake Nyiningam Fanana, if you can come in Ningata, you want to react to what I said, you can do that. But probably a good way to come in would be Lafake Nyiningam. What do you think, in terms of Darboe Lanying Ganyo Menke thing? Iti amira wobe abipati na fala bam fa abipati sen la komal, especially in terms of carte finala jari samala. What are his chances? What do you think Darboe can offer the party going forward?
I mean, I think Ninkol Velarinya follow Nyanta Hakilo Mon la Commando Ninkel, me at Darboe Findan and Fon, Kafoko Abe Ning ala UDP party o Plaso in India, Wale Semon in India, Abe Lafla Caron Cotting. I'll be that I will in Talib Ko in form with. Because then we kala nung muli al nako diamo be siar na nung mul ba fokang talib ben sura usenu be murun na komale talib finda ba foko ha be interest la pour karon then usenu findita nang diamo kabri yanko banin talib lo dia kachani siar do man usenu finda nang ay diamo be fa do man ning ko ha nim pati opportunity dinna be boral so wolom background nyindi so mo jama na ta mim fo mi ad na usenu fo finda na wolom nyindi ko because sa laftale ka pati nying Kamobe Kafunyokan, Kamobe Unite, because there is an apparent division. So, Usienu B, Usienu Tammampuru Kapati Nyaton Kaya Kata 2026, in many ways also symbolizes a symbolism of unity for the party. Because more than anything else, Molbela particular Miyalanko, they don't believe more Kotensa Party Unite than Alhadi Usienu Darboe. And rightly so. In Tembeng ha, because Nina Jibe. Usienu Darboe isa kuwa be fato nyaonya bari ko nga fo nyamem kuno pati mi yalan ko be lorin kabi 1996 for be abe bambanding it does not just take anybody, it takes leadership, it takes responsibility, it takes accountability, it takes sacrifice, and Usienu Yomu manifest. Now the question is Fonso translate no into winning. Nanim baro tata head to head, nanim baro lora 2026 Fonso jiwe no banku Usienu I sacrifice will make and say reward no pro man say alaba. So Nina to Jibe now Kuan Ben Nekalamindi 1996 I katala man win, 2001 I katala man win. Election will be later all can be a lot among win all movie and Nina number for Jibe. Ala number like a min so the new election will be better with Abejikan. So phone call for mathematically abe jikan right? Amantara selekan. So ni nato jibe. So ndela miralo mnyinati. Purkari act yemin for is this. Naturally, more ning Usenu Darboe tata. Puruka plaso nyine UDP be fola. Because Usenu Darboe internally ebe fola. Because still the party is very loyal to him and rightly so, right? But nte la miralo, what would have been appropriate to do? Wala mnyendiko Usenu Darboe should have led from behind. Ay tara koma ay alanyin dinol alanyin soldier bal ay be pus babala commandol. Sabali safanyari babala commandol ay mume pus mume koma Talib Yankuba Darboe Lamin Sane and all these people falli because there is no way so long Usenu Darboe abe padila nyaton kayaring falli you know be man chance. So what ends up happening is, for example, say Talib Bensouda Miyanko Akarizan Tapatila Funkayal Nyaton Kayal, Mimbina Kela, he's going to probably separate Abita Fon and Nani Modantang. Wala mo jama kato malo moja la babulo kono bari moja la bari ngal fanam Talib plaso min sota UDP kolle wala assembentoya. So until a mirror be the science and thing, it's going to be interesting to see Usenu Darboe Nyaton Kaya Qatar 2026, what it is going to signify in terms of formidability against President Barrow. Abe sembunyari le sotola. You know, fabe mol kamana na pati kono le bam fabe mol bon la pati nyin kono le. Womu kula de miyalon ko fonga mbata domandi ngoje.
Yeah, fonga mbata domandi ngoje. I think, you know, a lot to unpack there, but you know, I agree with you, Darboe electability is a big concern in the sense that for as a keno motileba mense ganyero keno UDP toyala right now at the moment. But I think I would just want us to take a step back to look at Gambia political landscape right now and not only focus on Usenu Darboe. I think the reality of the matter is right now, regardless of UDP mentambindi for Darboe and Numbang for more but maybe let me also say I think I agree with you also. The most ideal in the form of if Ning Usenu Darboe in his mind akumarako okay saying, you know, leftele party potential jamala sort of funding upon young coming people that are very capable, that are doing well, that are very popular moli kanu ilaftela ye karonke lononke ye dunia ya itamata ye dunia lom na akumarako okay mbadu ngasaba koma ngabule to damangol ya you know ye nyo your leadership plus in UDP. That would have been the most ideal. But I think also to look at take a step back and look at the big picture. Right now, regardless of UDP and mentor, I think you are bound to face a challenge because President Adama Barrow is a formidable opponent. I think we all have to agree with that. You know, he's the incumbent, at least Aketa Nyama, being an incumbency ka advantage mendila Nyatunkola Africa kono. On top of that, the president is also doing well. He's doing well in terms of infrastructural development. In his own right, he's also very popular.
Yes.
So, regardless of who came, whether Taliblem, Youngslem, Darboe, they were bound to face a challenge in the passing of President Adama Barrow because, you know, I can tell you for free, Afanang is extremely popular in Gambia.
Yeah.
And undela miroro mo kunkili na ifango damala on merit kang priye Barrow borinda ba koleal. So ndenga mira, you know, UDP la Usenu Darboe tombonte nyameng. Ndenga mira what the party needs to do going forward is kaloya Usenu Darboe candidature support. It's okay no nyameng wole mu ibe dengala ye kambengo nin kankiliyata ya londi party yokono. Talibina aitandiko mbe Darboe komale bimba komale sama. Na laftan na alekanu ni lafo menkenna ala waitan di Darboe. Talib youngs fana na the same. Lamin Sane and all these people ni be dentanyola yo message ta ya asembo warandi ya itandi molla ko okay nin Darboe itende kanunola ikoite UDP kanula. You know abele ko iko futo na dajo wrong basically ita follow la famila ko mala fi na papela. So I think when they send that message home, you know, there will be people many along they will be skeptical, but at the same time also ebe more sotalale, you know, kanunte ulu kono many along they will, you know, accept that message they will rally behind UDP. And the other truth of the matter, since you're talking about data, we have also seen experts that have looked at our election data, and it's going to be very difficult party killing sort of opposition or purka presidency incumbent So regardless of who comes, the goal is to unseat the incumbent. I think it will require more than just UDP Dama. We require other parties UDP Kang or oppositional Dama or Kafunyoma to be able to challenge the incumbent in a very successful manner. So I think, Jibondin Nemu and Niajibe Fanang amanke we cannot totally dismiss La Senu Dabola prospect as an individual.
Yes.
Your election tambila I think we have seen that we can argue that they have not been conducted in a very fair and fair manner. Free and fair manner.
Yes.
Because at the time, JRTs the matter from sort of the oppositional, they barely have time to communicate their plans, to interact with people. The times have changed. So in Dela Miro, I think all hope is not lost. I think there is still an opportunity for the opposition to challenge and make sure that they make the executive run for their money, and that could only come about ningatara UDP fangwa Gambian in Kankiliasoro. I saw that in the news co. Their goal is to ye damolu Kambendi Kankiliasamana Neo Keno Dal. I think that would be a very big plus for them going forward. That's what I think. I don't know what do you think of that?
No, I totally. Yeah, mean for so although all our jama for cemento, I think mbese sonno minna kumo minna science and the whole of UDP party balamwiti. Until the only opportunity in Minnesota Qatar 2026 or the biggest opportunity Gambia Minnesota Ninkol after falling on through a democratic process UDP te bolanoje. So momo lafta kakuke no fweni UDP lano nyoka UDP fanan damma te kukelano because wo na record sol yo tandile ko ya fanyame na political landscape at kelano, right? So I think more than anything else UDP towards 2026 one for yela house put in order, and you very clearly they have to put their house in order. Ila big political head so ye be coming together for them to go to 2026 with a unified voice. Okumaya to Babakel, Yankuba Lawo, Talib Lawo, Nimol, Momo. Because at the end of the day, one ultimate Gambia cares so much, right? Including President Barrow. One objective Kukilo. Mail after all, wolon ka falindro ka Gambia. O falindro bina nyame wati do wala ka kolea. But nimbe lara nyoka. Because at the end of the day, nintemu, for example, Esa Faldi wala modo, ninte la filangana nimpati la nyoka mi alonko, opati internally tol me la call for fix no, problem mo farinje. Abo kolea la. Ninte la mwele. So abe that la UDP phone, science thing, I think they've taken a major step to make a decision about Ilafa direction to Malta for 2026, and he settled with Honorable Usaino Darboe. So now this is the moment Puru ila party to come together and be intentional about unification and not to separate people away, not to separate people or to keep people away. Me and they disagree with them because of the kukelano. So UDP mimina kela UDP bidalo le for in a model for the only winner come here for Nyame is going to be President Barrow. And let me say this categorically, President Barrow, if there is anything Gambia that people really care about is development, but more than development is Cairo Fali akumaya te baba kele Gambia, because you have to realize that it was only a few years ago that ngamansakuna so miyalonko ay Gambian ul mantora baba kele. So bi Gambia se kolea nyaonya yemansakuna so miyalonko hadamo dingola nyanto akolea ta nyaonya I can make sure yadi hadamo dingola. Na democracy, even though abe fragile nyaonya ya make sure it's not compromised. That is now small fit. And I don't want anybody to undermine. That is important. And President Barrow nala kumbe nyaonya nala mansakunda. I feel like generally you can objectively make the case that he is a Democrat. He's a liberal, that Gambians you appreciate Babakel. So at the end of the day, all this noise, me and Kabakanje, Nimul Mela House put order, people would settle with President Barrow. We'll have President Barrow for additional 5 years until President Barrow Kabatata, then we move on away from there. But the way things are going, there's only one winner. And war, more than anybody else, is the NPP.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Ngamira Memfo is Tonyalem. Coming Memfo Mole, I always tell people, anyone who cares to listen, if you underestimate President Adama Barrow, you are doing it at your own peril. Because the truth of the matter is, you look at the president from Cabinet to Moment Nasida, Kana Fokabula Bila. All the political challenges I mentioned, he emerged victorious. Kabiring Karte Lembang, UDP and UDP la Tala Lembang, the Constitutional Review Commission la Doku and all of those things. All the things that you would say politically, this could wreck the president, the NPP and President Barrow. He comes out on the other side victorious.
Yeah.
So, and secondly, for Nankomeka Memvo, he has a lot to ride on. Kujamale Bidi President se sujuno na se sembeno menna. Men satina no Gambian no le kato diala. Come Memvo, more peace of mind men so the Gambia banko kam, knowing that it's a sino le president criticize kuma farmer, yela e sino kaira tinyanga yela. Come in kanyi Memvo any infrastructure development in Nkol. For example, you go to my place in Jokadu, ndolwan kurang along, but ye kurang odin ndola sadoro, inizara kiyam fanan the same, ye silo somebody. So I think molu nibe Gambia la kofala ani electability ani winning. But I think that should be something that people should reflect on. The government has a lot of problems, corruption or the perception of it. Ani Kujamal Beji will be a problem, but I think also go under it back. But I agree with you that UDP has to put their house in order to be able to inspire even other opposition parties and leaders to be able to join them. I agree with you. Ibrahim saying. Wato be dunkan koto sayin lafta fana nga jibe ke ku kotana me alon ka findita kibaro to bi o be dending men na wole mu nying ministerial reshufflement men sota da Gambe banko kam men kera falingote men sota cabineto la karola Gambe banko kam kunu nga kibaro muta kabo state house ka itandi je ko e ka fami ko Babakar Diouf memu minister of trade membe maralin Julian Safaro kola e ko wole bondi o siran kan ya samba minister bunda me maralin tanko kola ye Auditor General bondi ala palasoro ya samba minister ni noto bari mbe kibaro men soto kan wole muko Auditor General akama lafi wo minister palaso nyina. In fact, nga kaito men famaje online, I don't know whether we can pull that up. We will try to pull that up janing mbe fenko nyimbana. Bari nga kibaro men soto wole muko ay safaro ke president wakane kaitanda la ko atadum malafika boalo palaso tala Auditor General palaso tala malafi ministerial. So I don't know. What is your immediate reaction to the cabinet reshufflement first, and then we can look at the confusion that is coming out of it.
I mean, Fally, Gambia is an interesting place because ko de la fond be mim fond fondi. Ndol kabin 2021 audit reports on mi alon ka be nyanta findila femman find. And there are allegations of government interference.
Reaction sort of on the whole cabinet reshufflement itself. Like, how do you see? Because online, it doesn't make sense. Kamo appoint Minister of Defense, security background, and all of that. So if you can address it before we come to the Auditor General resigning, what is your take on all of that?
I mean, I think President Barrow, my first reaction is he likes cabinet reshuffle, which is his prerogative, by the way. Ala right long pro kafalindroke, especially now I feel good la dolnyanda falindal. But it's a bla be falino, but I think there are specific ministries in the Gambia mi alonko wol danibe mol sambalaje. They at least need to have some level of expertise or background. Although ministers are politicians generally, right? It all politician the president agenda, it all call a fenke, it call a push, and they are at the mercy of the president too. But Minister of Defense is a very unique portfolio in the government. Amanki kom mobile because it has to do with our national security. Bankola tanko. It become mobile sambodo laro. You see someone who trade or you take them to different other ministries and they're just gonna be fine because technocrats will cut. Yes, granted, Ministry of Defense they're going to have experts to support them. But if you're the manager of a business company or an accounting firm, let's say an accounting firm, which is a unique and specialized skill or area, need along wala nyaton kodi. Itama accounting experience at all, no accounting background. Fale aba koleral put your department on somebody. So I feel like President Yosembo Sudanyawanya, but when it comes to specific ministries like that, Akumata Babakele, for him to focus on at least the bare minimum of defense background, Ko-Maritaki somebody, and especially in a country where we are not short of security and like military experience or defense experience from individuals. So what President Barrow Jibela Baba Kele, Janabo hiring Sifakele, because defense Kumata is so important.
No, I totally agree with you. I think just like how, for example, Minister of Justice, you need a lawyer to lead the ministry.
Yes.
Because Minister of Justice is the main principal legal advisor to the government. So I think, you would expect that Momo Bekela Minister Bunda Nyaron Kodi, Madam Itolel Kaman Sakunda Yamar Luala Karola. So Jiko Bejeko ni Momo Bekela Minister of Justice, Imari Feseke Luari, Warafango, Yeke Motima Alonko, Yukula Laya Koraning Tilingoning Kool. So I think Minister of Defense is such a ministry, Fanang, to be honest. Yeah. But you have other many model beje many alongo wol fana ni wol nyin kay quand même foy wala muko as a minister ila do ko manke technical do code. You don't have to be well versed when it comes to the technical aspect of the job. Dolka wole fana vo e comme minister do ko
isn't the sikano bibi yende ke Ministry of Defense ko jiwe doro.
Why not? Why not?
No,
because what do you need to understand for now? Model Bejele, for example, how these ministries work. Minister mostly itolkatara santole. So ila permanent secretary in director wolel katara at the level of the technical cadering. Wolel ka kaito ludoku wolel ka police tabiani wasifal. Nita da foi motale kana yalandi minister koto. Minister Yamare, I oversee and all of that. But for some reason, I feel like in an advanced jurisdiction, in a place where the governance system is very matured, I think you can make this argument, well. Kafoko, Mansula Minister Lamene Alonko, they are specialists in a particular area, but in our case, we still need more many alonko. They are experts or they are at least specialists in their area. And the other problem with the government in general in terms of appointment is even permanent secretarial. Eka permanent secretarial mutale, yemo ke permanent secretary minister bundado. Minister Bundame Alonka manke amari la specialist expert area de wakasutole ekaje yemo ke Minister of Education di be yebondi je yesamba youth and sport. I'm talking about the level of the permanent secretary famo. So ekaje okay nite permanent secretary so me alonko amari manke a specialist in that area. Another minister la ka mem fana manke specialist in that area. You are just going to create problems.
Yes.
I'm just trying to be, coming kachani kono fanundi to look at the explanation from people on the other side, because nejibe loke government la support, especially online. That's what they are saying. Ibe memfoka wale muko minister mu policy maker lelti. They don't necessarily have to be a specialist or a technician in that particular area to be the head of the ministry. So what is your take on that?
I think even Luabuko constitutional is, I don't know the specific section, but I'm pretty sure even the constitutional is pretty clear in respect to the background of certain ministries or certain state secretaries, for example, including Minister of Justice, for example, that you need to have at least a certain, bare minimum qualification in that particular area. And I believe, I suspect, I need to double check and confirm when we come back tomorrow or next tomorrow, I can confirm this, that the Minister of Defense is also included, that you cannot just have anybody as a Minister of Defense. And I'll be remiss if I don't mention that the Minister of Defense should be the person to really advise the government of the Gambia of the implications of this, both legally and also security-wise. Even though we make this argument, and I've had this argument several times, that, Minister, even John, Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense for the United States, he was in the military, but he's not like a defense expert. right?
Yeah.
That conversation is going. Kabrata the Senate, Kacha Jamal Narananje Kanyininka about all these really important security questions. But Gambia, what are you? And that's one of the reasons why Lafa Luan Yimfalina, Constitutional Yimfalinka, ensure that President Yesembo Soto, Malafiko Sembo Tabulo Konoka, Minister Keita Ke select. But ila confirmation on Yandakata National Assembly so that we can subject them to rigorous questioning. President Damala questioning might enough because most of the time, President Kanyul Hayale, there's a political patronage. Case satisfied because they are loyal to him. Some of them, they don't understand the policy because what drives the policy is basic understanding of the policy, what informs the policy. If you don't understand that, even Minister Nfally Atidano. So what ends up happening is, ikake phone call to Dorang, we blind in motorbike, we traveling, we see the JC meeting also. But the person to really drive the institutional reform for our defense, it's not going to be somebody who does not have an idea or a background about security or defense in the Gambia. And you know, more than anything else, we have a serious national security gaps that, you know, it's been overdue for reforms in that country, including recommendations from the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission. So we can know nyade. So nyadra janibe ni nota mi alanko among karang soto among qualifications soto in defense. Ita mojuel mi alanko. In fact, I capacity nyin soto le to lead that process pro reform nyin lafa minkela pro I gana sonia. So all balancing, I feel like mansakunda nyanda wala jibela. You know, ka jibe hey, you know, funga politician okay wala technocrat wala nga mo kamana mi alanko ase changing drive no wala gana kumad. So wala nang kafuko baro wati do I don't understand mulka advice prior kudo because you know because all of this boils down to a political capital. Near more correct if jibe I mean higher Minister of Higher Education, Professor Gomez. The reception that is getting from people because Yalnako he's not putting a round peg in a square hole. Moleke Mialanko has been in academia for a very long time and he is delivering. So why are you taking exception of other places or other ministers? Mialanko is more common is a political interests are push no nyaming and also the interests of the country.
Now, just my last point on this before we move to the other aspect of the appointments, Attorney General, maybe one of the things that we also need to look at is what is the goal of the government? What is their ultimate objective of appointing this personality to lead the ministry? So some of the arguments that I have seen, which also could make sense, is that the government wants to see reform in our security sector, especially in the area of defense. So it all argument movement Babukar Juve, given his expertise in policy making, in reforms and all of that, they think when he comes, he should be able to facilitate that reform process fastly. I think that is the objective. But I agree with you that under an ideal circumstance, you need to get somebody who has experience, somebody who has expertise, somebody who has advanced knowledge in a particular area to lead a ministry. But at the same time also, I also want to say, I don't think that should necessarily be the case for the ministers. But in Gambia, like case, I can argue that we need that because coming up, our governance is still very young in the sense that, you know, we just came out of a very difficult period. You know, Minister Bundalo Jamal Dundanyokono for a very long time, all of them designed to serve the interests of one person, President Kodro Jame. So, Ngamira, I think the approach of the government should be to bring in technicians to run. And your example, Omendi Fanang, is a very good example. We have seen Prof. Gomez doing a good job, you know, because about a higher education level. So our area along, you can resonate with them, you can, you know, level with them at that level. You say Marco, you know, to move. But the other point about the parliament vetting the president's ministerial appointment, I have a different view on that. But I think we'll save that for another day. You know, because I think if you elect an executive president, he should be able to choose the people he works with. But let's not get dragged into that.
No, we should. Okay, we'll get back to that.
Yes,
hopefully we have another day. Yes.
I'm sure of that. But given the fact that we are very short on time, I just want us to address the issue of the Auditor General. You know, we have seen that, you know, he came out, saying the Babukar Jufnoro, but I Palaso Yintala Murundi, Akata Malafi. The confusion Ebrima is the way government handles appointments. You know, ikamulta dokola, ika kankula, ibuka fa marie. I really don't understand that. this is a problem me alonko ameta kelale. Ameta kelale hani bi auto men state house nun. We used to get into that problems. We used to get into that problem. So muneka ke ika moluta ike minister do ike palasori, you don't have any prior consultation with them. It's as if coming, ikamuta loko, okay, minister is so good that Nia present moment about alale for family and before or for my family before. But I don't think that's a very good approach. Yeah. I think statesmanship and statecraft is not serious, and we need to take it seriously. And some of these things and they play out so publicly. Minister Imam Femfaye, Palazzo Murunda and all of that. This is not the first time. You remember when they did it to the former governor of Central Bank? I forgot the guys for Bakari something lemba.
I think Gambia or something.
Gambia, something like that. Yeah, Bondi Central Bank governor yake ministerial lafi. Manjang Fanang, the same. It was rumored that they were going to make me minister and all of that. But Hani Bidin State House from based on my own experience. For example, ika minister tale, he announced, at the time, I cannot say confidently whether president or council of fabricate council, but in coordination bukasot. You will think that near minister appoint, Janin Kanklaro Bekelan, Dolmen be in the press and communication office, Nyantelenga Kibaro Soto, Nyantelenga long isaje, mbalon na lemba kunying kibar la nyameng. Ba mari fanang, because the thing that I used to advocate for is, Ndola job is to make the president look good in the communication office. That's the job of the communication office. So ibela fila menna wala muko nim president o kuke ya heten de molla ko president o hakili male tam min nyin kodo. Jumalle so keno is the communication office. It's okay no nyadile as it relates to the president's appointment is to show that any mol menta ya londo sodole ya experience sodole, you take good pictures of them. Because no problem also you go online minister phone kendo know about the ministers. To even get their CV is a problem. So ikaje ko work coordination o bukataraje. So intela miro janim president be mota la kaike minister ka kankula. Enyandele yemari kumandi at least 1 week before ya fwe nyine mung hamoti iniya kacha. You go and coordinate it with all the different departments and ministries many stakes sort of into this. Press and communication, maybe from security, they need to do their background check into you to see whether you have what it takes to be a minister. So I think all of those things will be nyantakelele, but apparently it looks like abukake onyama ikemari mutale ye tombo ya kankula rokola ina ye inform. Because ni one day I don't understand how you can appoint someone minister and publicly I don't want to be a minister. It's embarrassing. What's your take, Ebrima?
I mean, Fally, I cannot put it any better than you did, but I think akumata baba kele mansakunda ye cool ke in a way me alonko enyanta land la wala nyaw because ni mo ke do reka problem wala kamana if only fumble in situation si fa kon ni aje nyimbe finna wonyama. In fact, to publicly make a statement like that is embarrassing for the government. Amon yankele wonyama. Even nila fa nyim file, for example, walila fa bundala plus for one reason or the other, which I hope man time the but we can get to. There is a way of doing it. President has the right. Auditor General la Palazzo ba atela ke hire atela fire, which I also have a problem with. Again, presidential power, and we are going to get there. So hopefully we are going to get that place of executive power, which part of my class right now is what I'm doing. Is we give all of this power to the executive and near exercise, because how can this guy, Auditor General's office, hold the government accountable? And then they are also at the mercy of the president. How can the police, for example, me along with the same process we have with protests? Police, the president hires the IGP of the police. So the IGP and the president of the Rasari call no wala abai. Not to recall, but as a final. So that's the same thing that we're seeing right now with the Auditor General's office. This should be an independent office. Ila doku inyante semento yalale ila doku ke nyala miyalonko, there is not going to be any political interference or executive interference because because we all know the reason this guy ilafakele minister yalone yafo but ite yalone because of the allegations of interference in terms of ila findings with several sets of reports miyalonko hanibi imanke no public. So niatara nyimu multi mi along favorable report or call the malata for the government. Perhaps I'm going to be at the blood. But that's besides the point. The point is
but what do you say to people that say making him minister is a promotion?
Oh, come on, Fali. In that capacity with the job that he is doing, it's not everybody that is moved by being a minister. Some people have certain values and principles that they are unwilling to compromise. If we are a minister, like you articulated very well earlier, is you are a politician. That is different. You have to push the agenda of the president at all costs. In fact, Saturday, even time of water in the Ministerial family, NPP campaign, you market will be by that. But as Auditor General, he is not duty bound to do that. He is duty bound to find the gaps in the financial malfeasance or mismanagement of this current government on our public institutions. And that's exactly what he is doing. But that's exactly what he is doing. So, you know, and it's not everybody, me alonko. Minister Akibun, no, but Minister Lafa. So now the question is Barrow, which you are political, you're very political, and you have a good political knowledge too. You can tell me how that will come across in terms of communication. Now, is the president going to step up to say that no, you are challenging my authority? You know, not of a dealer, Iman Satala, and if plus don't telling me I have the power to keep you there too. Or is he going to come? Okay, cool. Minister, I'm going to leave you where you are. At what point the public is also going to see this for exactly what it is? So, in terms of public relation, how would you say it? And I think we can wrap up with that. How do you think this is likely going to play out?
Yeah, I think in terms of the optics, it's not looking good for the government. Coming out for Nyaming, you know, it shows that basically you karandi manyale ke dal. You know, I think you know, Karamobal, in terms of handling things like this, you would expect, at least even the expectation is, you know, coming on memfwe, it didn't take no la plazo de inima ko kacha. Am possible. Then ni other no wasorotanu. Tumando ba don defutala nyim tembo right now. But at the same time also, I think I don't know. I think it's at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. It's a personal choice for the Auditor General to determine where he wants to stay. If he doesn't want to be minister, that's fine. But I don't think also we can entirely say that now, but Auditor General's office, it means they are trying to be corruption less or something like that. Because Nyajengofo is the same Auditor General's office. Membe nunje nyakasi le nyaton kayakoro. Biri nyakasi bon. Is it nyakasi? Karamba. Karamba Ture or Karamba something. But Karamba used to be the Auditor General. He was also, you know, very straightforward. Ala audit report were very, very ibuka cool fla. Bire Karamba bondi molko hae ila faka tapala ala kejang ha ni Karamba bondi thing. But I think the Auditor General's office, the National Audit Office, let me put it that way, is a very resilient office. I think regardless of Mensa Mananje, you know, they should be able to do a good job. I've interacted with people from the Auditor General's office. I know their mindset. You know, one of the people that I work with at the OIC came from the Auditor General's office. And, you know, I know how they think and how they approach issues, you know, to a very large extent. You know, I think you can make a very strong argument that, you know, they tend to do things by the book mostly. But this guy, this Mod Sise guy also, at a fango kundingo fango mumolete me along he's incorruptible. Based on testimonial mentioned from more many along. You know, Mo Jamal attested to the fact that he's a very, very, he's a straight shooter. So I can understand why he wants to stay at the Auditor General's office. But I don't know whether we can also fully say that Alabondo J is designed to cover up things. Because
what else would it be, Fali?
Also bigger than an individual. Coming up memfoe, mole fana mbenu nje me alonko fana ni mansa kunda buke janu dimbakiling. Mo be amuta nunko ni abondi je. It means the institution is going to be compromised. It didn't turn out to be like that. In fact, it turned out to be even stronger. They ended up having somebody who was, you know, more whatever, non-compromising. So I think at the end of the day, ndela miroro nieke minister ilafta for man lafi is a personal choice for the Auditor General. But I think what this exposes is the lack of sophistication and coordination, especially how cabinet appointments are handled. Ndela miroto inamana moto mon kake palaso membe ko a minister. But ini mo mari nyanta silale aliafo anu foro manyana den na president ni mari da matima. But it also should involve other stakeholders. Coming up for even the communication department of the presidency, even across the government, the minister of information also, they need to be involved, because nim minister tata foya appoint. Basically, you are just like Machiavelli Memfo in The Prince. You can judge a leader's intellect by looking at the people he surrounds himself with. Nyatonko ni lafta la kendeana la kesialo no fana ika molel jibe membabala. So ala communication office la doko momenti wala munim president ngoy molu tombong ko molta ke nyinyandi kaiten di ko nyinu molel ti men yalon ko ya karango sotole ya londo sotole yela kuota ya afandi molla basically kamolu ka confidence ka jiko kamolla jiko warandi la kuoto but ni ngatara wo bebu ka keno aboebu ka keno because there is no coordination, then there is a problem. What is your last take na kibaro kumva?
No, you're absolutely on point, Fally. I think I don't know for you bari ala the National Audit Office, they are threatening a labor action, basically to sit at home until government is resolve, and which it speaks to the quality of their leader and also a competence and uncompromising nature in terms of the job that they do. So I hope that, because iladoko kumaya babakele, and obviously through the president himself, ako audit report is a opinion report the malo, right? Regardless of how you look at that, I think that's a very problematic statement to say. So nyumansa kundaning audit office la loggerheads walela kung senyolo amanke ku kutari mobile along. So I hope that koni resolve surata, because balo fo nyanta kontana nyinko nindela nyamma sakuna for the mafre ko hey I report on yindalia mumebon. And I think in many ways, in terms of their public relations, they are doing a great job to rebrand efforts, not to completely diminish that there are allegations or at least a perception of corruption, but they are making efforts to change that, right? So in order to be transparent, you have to be intentional about those things, but it does not help you to go ahead and fire or try to create this charade of promoting the director of the National Audit Office to be a minister and bring somebody else there. That doesn't help. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the country.
I think the damage is done. For you raised one point that is very important. The government is trying to walk back the perception that it is very corrupt. So last time, they went to Bantaba and in Galamul Sita, they, read out a lot of cases that are at the courts right now. Government do kulal men like Kitio Bekeka Yemen accused for they are doing a good job. I think they need to be consistent with that messaging that they are not covering up for official graft and corruption. But I don't know how removing the Attorney General helps that objective. The Auditor General. So I think also I'm mistake already. What the government needs to do is to just leave him where he is, look for somebody else to lead. And then Auditor General Bula. I think we also need to discuss why. I don't understand how government can make mistakes if that undermine confidence in them.
Yeah.
But I hope that they can be consistent in some of the things that they do. But Ibrahim, I think it was a very good conversation. Mbelamola Fanangela Mbaltentula, Atom Vibes FM. Allah bari malum falli federa aning Ibrima Sonko albe Bitilo la moy kan ngal jeyi ngal tentu ala la moy kunyi makang ala baraka. Thank you very much indeed.